The Jim and Terry Show minus Jim, who's away on holidays, traveling east, enjoying the maritime provinces, and coming back with pictures, I hope. The Terry part of the Jim and Terry Show, taking a look at some of the issues that are swirling around us. And today, I'm catching up on some things UNGA, not Unga Bunga, although that is a song I have recorded, Unga Bunga, UNGA. United Nations General Assembly. And who was speaking? President Biden. Who was also speaking? Vladimir Zelensky. I don't know where you stand on this, but have you heard those speeches, both Biden's and Zelensky? Good place to start on the Jim and Terry Show, talking about things concerning, what do we call it? It's not the war that is taking place in Ukraine. It is not a special military operation. It is nothing short of an illegal invasion and occupation of sovereign territory of Ukraine. It is an attempt to not just take what is not theirs, this is Russia, taking from Ukraine. It is a question of annihilation. And I don't know where you stand on violence and war and nuclear threats and missiles, bombs, torture, occupation, raping and pillaging in the true medieval sense where you annihilate the civilian population. Russia is to blame. Russia started this. Russia keeps on doing this. The war crimes are being recorded and evidence is being gathered for The Hague. The International War Tribunal will meet, and at some point, those who are responsible will be held accountable in the International Criminal Court, ICC. And whether Putin actually gets extradited, of course, depends on whether he decides to travel abroad. Remember, he was going to go to South Africa, but the threat of him being apprehended and held accountable was so real that he decided not to go. That takes us into other things that are of interest. I'll get back to Ukraine in a moment because Secretary of State Blinken is on the Morning Joe show, which I tend to enjoy. And he's speaking as I record this podcast, so I'll get back and check out his words. But Biden, Zelensky at the UN, worth listening to if you haven't had a chance to hear the words. The words are pretty tough, but they involve another association. I used UNGA, UNGA, and here's another one, BRICS, BRICS. And if you know the names of those countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa are the countries involved in BRICS, which is an alternative to the EU, an alternative way of looking at world trade by creating another trading bloc or environment, this one based not on U.S. currency. And we'll see how long that shows strength. But when I take a look at that list of characters, and I'm thinking especially of this week in Canada, and Trudeau, our Prime Minister, coming from social distancing with Modi from India, I am wondering to what extent India is just like the other hooligans in BRICS, just like Russia, just like China. India, big population, big manufacturing, big technology. They landed that lunar landing, Shandaya, I think was the name of it, on the moon. So big technology, stuff to be celebrated. But one thing is not to be celebrated is when you meddle in another country's politics. Canada is like America, land of the free, individual rights and freedom. But somebody's life, a sick leader, was taken, snuffed out, and now Trudeau believes, and he shared this information with the Five Eyes, so that everybody's on the same page. India seems to be behind an assassination of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil. And this really complicates things because foreign policy of both Canada and the United States and most of the world is hinging itself or wrapping itself around a free, democratic India. To what extent is India free and democratic? Well, you might have a lot of social criticism of India as being stuck back in the dark ages of the caste system, of not being truly democratic. And if you looked at that as the context, you would understand that perhaps Trudeau is more than a little miffed at India. And there is a potential for this to be difficult to smooth over. There needs to be some kind of reckoning, and right now Modi has denied any wrongdoing. Sounds a lot like MSB, Mohammed bin Salman, in the Khashoggi murder and mutilation and disposing of the body of the Washington Post journalist. Wow. Yeah, when people start disappearing, you gotta ask questions, whether they are Russians disappearing from windows or cars or jet airplanes, or they are opponents on foreign soil, people who disagree with you, and you're going to, what, assassinate people? What kind of country does that? Well, don't answer that question. It's more rhetorical, but I think you can all fill in the blanks with the answer to that one. Yeah, we're not all above reproach. India's not above reproach. Neither is Russia. Neither is China. South Africa's had its own share of problems, and apartheid still is not too far in the distant past, not far enough maybe. And then we have Brazil wrestling with its own ghosts of things past, of dictatorial leaders, of policies that are anything but democratic. So we got this BRICS thing, and India is the I in BRICS. And we got the UN, and we got a strange happening where one of the countries, the permanent member of the Security Council, is Russia. Russia is the aggressor in this illegal war, this illegal attack, this illegal invasion of Ukraine. It's in the Charter, for goodness sake, the Charter of the United Nations. You respect the territorial sovereignty and integrity of your neighbors. Well, so much for that. And the United Nations speeches this week by President Joe Biden and by Vladimir Zelensky, powerful statements of both affirming the determination of the free world to stand behind Ukraine. Free? You say that excluding Russia? Yeah, Russia's not free. China's not free. We get in trouble if we call China a dictatorship. That's going on in the EU right now. Somebody slipped up. Why is it a slip-up if you call it what it is? Well, in politics and diplomacy, we tread lightly, and as one American president used to say, but carry a big stick. Tread softly means guard your words, use things that are politically correct, that are, you could nuance them, you could massage them and shoehorn them into little boxes that fit more comfortably on some diplomat's desk. But really what's inside there, what's inside all the nuance is the absolute certainty that Russia is not a democracy, China is not a democracy, Putin is not president, he is a dictator. Xi Jinping is not the leader, he is a dictator. That there are atrocities going on in these countries, there is oppression, there is propaganda, the control of the media by the state. You think we have a lack of freedom here in Canada, and that was the essence of the Ottawa protest. Lack of freedom? Really? Get a load of what's happening around you, around the world, and we will complain and compare notes. You have to argue from facts, not from feelings, and so it begets us to look for the facts and to decide what is worthy of believing, what is worthy of your time investigating, what is worthy of your energy when you become convinced that something is so, when really it might not be so. Russia, is to blame for the war in Ukraine. NATO is not. That's a demonstrable fact. You might argue that there are antecedents, there are events that are precursors that forced Russia's hand. Nobody forces anybody to do anything. It is a sovereign choice of a country to do this. Russia's illegal invasion, highlighted now in the United Nations General Assembly, where the victim of this aggression, Ukraine, is given the podium, where Russia is humbled in front of the congregation of the free. All the nations are listening to this. Russia is, I'm not sure humiliated, but certainly there is a reckoning to be happening. Volodymyr Zelensky, I think, recommended that Russia be removed from the Security Council. That would be a great first step. You can't have a country committing the atrocities and illegal invasion of another and have that country remain on the Security Council, holding up the works. Get rid of Russia for now. Is there always room for reform? Of course. Is there always room for a second chance and reestablishing, quote, normal trade and international diplomatic relations, unquote? Of course. We do not exist to necessarily punish, but to correct and establish something that is able to launch forward in a progressive way, in a way that acknowledges the rights and freedom of the countries, of the inhabitants. War crimes, the ICC, BRICS, India, assassination, they all get wrapped up in this Gordian knot of complex diplomatic relations. Good thing I'm not a politician. Jim, I would vote for you in absentia should you run for Prime Minister of Canada. I think you have the heart for it, the heart which is compassionate, empathetic, understanding, long-suffering. Well, the list of virtues, they sound almost biblical. Shout out to my good friend Jim. Missing you on the broadcast. Take care now. Bye-bye.